Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So Joe Rogan is currently going viral again because he decided to mock the likes of Douglas Murray in a recent podcast with other comedian Tim Dillon. And the internet is once again divided as a result. You got one side saying Joe is a comedian. He's allowed to mock whoever the hell he wants to mock. So apparently nowadays, if you call yourself a comedian, it gives you license to mock whoever you want. It doesn't matter what you say, how you say it, your intention. None of that stuff matters at all because you got a license now. You're a comedian. So, and again, like I'm all for humor. I'm not an unhappy, unhumorous person. I do have a funny bone in my body, believe you me, and I do see lots of things as being funny. But personally, the context surrounding how Joe Rogan decided to mock Douglas Murray, the topic they're talking about, and the timing of everything, just to me, I go, well, okay, this wasn't intended to be funny. This was intended to actually try and hurt Douglas Murray. And you have this one side that actually found it funny and were laughing and, you know, this is great because they actually really do hate Douglas Murray and what Douglas Murray stands for and what he said recently in an interview with Dave Smith. And this is on the back of Douglas being so kind, being an actual man of character in the interviews where he could have thrown Joe under the bus. He could have thrown Dave under the bus. He could have like actually hammered them, but Douglas showed real character. This to me shows that Joe's got no character that is good at the moment. Like it is really concerning to see someone actually do something like this to someone that is been nothing but graceful, been nothing but kind and respectful to you, and you claim to be friends with them. This isn't the sign of a friend. Like you don't see Joe mocking Dave and Dave's voice. No, you see Joe mocking Douglas and Douglas's voice because he's British and putting on the supposed pompous voice. Joe doesn't like that. Neither did Dave because and one of the main critiques of Douglas during that conversation or debate, whatever you want to call it, was that he sounded too arrogant and brash and too up himself, too pompous, so to speak. But that's how British people talk. He didn't change his tone at all. He never has. You listen to him in other podcasts, sounds the exact same. So again, using this frame of reference, right? I want every one of you to think about the context before watching this video, the context, topic, and your reasoning behind doing this. Why do this in the first place? Have a watch.
There's peace in the Middle East, hopefully. They keep talking about all this, you know, these deals they're all making. Hopefully that the Hamas and the Israel, whatever it is, they get, you know, because...
Well, that's one thing that Trump said. If I get in there, 24 hours, the war's over.
That's a tough one. 24 is tough.
That's obviously.
But hopefully they figure it out because it is, it's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy.
The human toll is unreal.
Unreal.
And, you know, it's crazy.
Some lady just died. She was the protagonist in some documentary, and she just got blown up.
There is an argument to be made that level of devastation and death is worse than you talking to someone on your podcast.
Allegedly.
There is an argument to be made. It's probably not a good one.
The amount of damage
is an
you
argument
can do with just talking.
There is an argument to be made that, you know, starvation and stuff like that and people dying is worse than a podcast.
But wait a minute.
I wouldn't make it.
Wait a minute before you say that. Have you been there?
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now?
Right, that's a good point.
You haven't been?
By the way, how is he in all these wars? Can I just go to wars? By the way, how are you allowed to just go to wars? Is that the way
you should at least
can you just
have the
go
courtesy of going there.
Can I just go to wars, or do I have to come back and say what people want me to say about the wars? Can I go to the wars and have my own opinions, or do I have to have the opinions?
Not if you want to go back.
That's right. That's right. It's very interesting, this war tourism. How do I get on this war tourism?
Yeah.
I'd like to go to the Ukraine. I want to go. I want to go. I want to go to all this war tourism.
Do you have any awards that they can melt down and make bullets out of?
Joe, think about this.
So I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan of Joe Rogan, but I wanted to show you guys the full clip to give you some context rather than just showing you a snippet of what Joe did. Obviously, you guys got the whole context, and he made an impersonation of Trump. I'll get it done in 24 hours. The war in Palestine will be done in 24 hours. Everyone does that. It's not intentionally to attack Trump. It wasn't something like context surrounding it. It wasn't something that Joe was doing to attack Trump. The other hand, I believe, this is my personal opinion, you guys can have a difference of opinion if you like, when he started going off of the Douglas Murray impersonation, that to me didn't seem like he was doing it to be funny. It seemed to me, and same with Tim also jumping on the bandwagon with this, it seemed to me that they were both doing it to make fun of Douglas. And obviously, like, we're all adults here. No one is above being made fun of, but when it's there to try and hurt and try and ruin someone's reputation because of how they talk or what they say, I go, you got to be someone of good character. Like, it's not wise, or it's not, especially when you got a major following the way that you have, it's not good or kind per se. If you've got someone that has been nothing but kind and respectful to you, to then go after him. So just because you've called yourself a comedian does not give you license to then go after or attack or try and humiliate the likes of Douglas Murray. I think Douglas is way well beyond that, and we'll find out what he has to say if he wants to say anything about it. But this charming man goes, this is a very bad look for Joe Rogan, and I say that as a fan. Joe's been around long enough to know mocking guests like this is just something you don't do. Joe's podcast is only as strong as the guests who appear. It's very much a two-way street, and perhaps this is why the dynamic of having a close friend in the studio for a debate was a bad idea. Joe will, of course, defend his friend at all costs, and frankly, all this does is lend credence to what Douglas Murray was asserting, and that the lack of seriousness so many of these podcasters demonstrate while seemingly trying to educate their listeners. It just shows me that Joe is upset at what Douglas did to Joe's friend, Dave Smith. Joe is obviously more friends with Dave than he is with Douglas. And to me, it just seems like very, very childlike behavior to do this, all because Douglas said what he said. And it, like that guy said, it just brings credence to what Douglas was saying. There's no maturity. It's just like, you're trying to be serious, but yet you're not being serious. You're being like acting like a 2-year-old. And honestly, if Tim brought this up, which he did, Joe should have shut it down and said, this is not appropriate, or not go as far as mocking one of his previous guests. It's just bad behavior, and Joe should have known better, is all I'm saying. Oren Barsky goes, Joe Rogan has shown his true colors. I'm sorry for anyone still trying to hold out to some idealized version of him, but over the past few months, he's left no room for doubts. What's worse, he did it in the most cowardly way, hiding behind others to say what he really thinks. And then Nick Dixon goes, if you build the biggest podcast in the world, then someone comes on to lecture you about your booking policy. This is a fair response. Obviously, he's in favor of Joe's mocking of Douglas, because Douglas was talking about in the New York Post article the booking issue that Joe decided to have Dave on there, which, again, blew up the internet. James Lindsay goes, this looks bad for Rogan, that I'm certain at least some of the MAGA influencers cheering it on are agents tasked with its destruction. With his destruction, I should say. Kosher goes, Rogan mocking Douglas Murray. Rogan clearly butthurt that his friend Dave got called on his bullshit. The fact Joe and Dave are still talking about this shows it's hurt their feelings that they got called out. Sad to see how low this podcast has sunk. Michael Eisenberg goes, no clearer sign that you have lost the intellectual argument than resorting to attempts to mimic Douglas Murray. High level of intelligence not to go as far as mocking or mimicking somebody for the sake of trying to hurt them. Khalid Hassan goes, Joe Rogan's episode with Douglas Murray was the first and last time I watched this clown show. I don't care if you have 1.5 million followers. Porn stars have a larger following. You don't see me going to them for their views on politics or geopolitics, and I won't be going to uneducated idiots for theirs. In America, the podcast bros are getting worse. This is not to say that podcasts cannot contribute to public discourse. Many, such as Konstantin Kisin, do, which I like Konstantin Kisin. But the American style, F the establishment and experts, work right bullshit that we see from Rogan, Tucker, and others is simply rubbish. It's not worth a minute of mine or yours time. Jake Donald goes, Douglas Murray broke Dave Smith's brain by calling him a political bisexual, which was actually pretty funny, and being both smarter and funnier than Smith, a supposed comic. Douglas Murray also broke Joe Rogan by implying he's not just a Nazi apologist, but a coward. And Joe Rogan has responded just like a coward would do, mocking someone that is actually a lot smarter and a lot more intelligent than you. Not a good look. Anyway, that's enough from me, but let me know what you guys think in the show notes not show notes, the comments below. But you guys take care of your place, and I'll see you all in the next video.